Now you're looking for trouble condition.
Hello and welcome to another episode of American Werewolves, where we talk all things horror. I am your co-host Brandon,
and I am Jerry,
and we're going to be talking about the latest release from Shudder, known as Stopmotion. This movie premiered, I believe, a month or two ago in theaters, a limited release, and it is premiering on Shudder at the end of May. But you can rent it right now on Prime or Apple TV, wherever you can find it. It is the latest horror film about a stop-motion animator who struggles to control her demons after the loss of her overbearing mother. This is the directorial debut of a Robert Morgan. This is his first feature film, but he has been known to direct a lot of different shorts in stop-motion animation, particularly one for the ABCs of Death 2, which is an anthology horror film series. He did D for Deloused. D is for Deloused, I believe it was called. Yeah. Which, that got a pretty good reaction when that film dropped, along with some other YouTube shorts he did over the years. He's been around since, I believe, 2010. It stars Aisling Freniowski. I'm gonna butcher a lot of names. I'm so sorry for the cast and crew. This is just, this is me being ignorant. It stars Aisling Freniowski, Stella Ganot, Tom York, Tariska Wilson-Reed, and Kaylin Springall. That was a lot of names I butchered. I apologize, but all are very, very good in this movie, particularly Ainsley. So good. This is one Jerry and I have been wanting to talk about for a while. I was literally watching something random on Hulu last night. I was just watching a TV series, and he texted me like, "Oh, putting on stop motion right now." So immediately got it, started streaming it, watched it. And we have some thoughts on this movie. This was one that was talked about a lot when the trailer first dropped, I believe late last year. It had a few festival runs, and there was some good reception from that. And, I've even had some friends telling me to check it out. Particularly one friend, he was super stoked for it. His name is Zach. He also does his own movie podcast. And he watched it. He told me he wasn't really a big fan of it, but he thought it was something I would like. So Jerry and I watched it last night. We are here now, and got some thoughts. It was a lot different than what I was initially expecting. I don't know about you.
Oh yeah.
It was it's not as, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really like it that much. I didn't really enjoy it. It's not one I would watch again, but it is one I would recommend for other people to watch, especially if they're fans of stop motion animation. It's a very different type of stop motion animation. Don't be expecting no Nightmare Before Christmas or Caroline or Paranorman. It's nothing like that. But, there's a lot of good in this movie to be found. Like, I think it's a really good effort, this movie, especially for a directorial debut from Robert Morgan. But I want to start off with our pros. Our star is Aisling Freniowski, who I know her from the film The Nightingale. I don't know if you've heard of that film, Jerry, at all.
Not.
It is not a horror movie. It is an adventure revenge thriller drama, directed by Jennifer Kent, who directed The Babadook. The Nightingale, though, very, very brutal film. I don't know if it's one I can actually even recommend. It's hard for me to even say it's a good film because of how so disturbing and messed up that movie gets. But Ainsley in that film, she's phenomenal in it. She really gives her all in it. So to see her pop up in here, it actually got me pretty excited, and it was worth it because she's very good in this movie.
Is she the main girl or is she the
main girl?
Okay.
Yeah. It's on Hulu. If you want it, I'd recommend checking it out just for the performances alone, but that movie's a really tough watch. It's very, very difficult to get through. Mm-hmm. But I thought she was phenomenal in there, and I really liked her performance in here too. She carries the film, honestly. Like everyone in the film, honestly, like they do fine for their parts. They do good. It's not like there's really any actor in here that stands out bad, but she really stands out the most. Stella Gannett, who plays the overbearing mother, who is a legend in stop motion animation, as they state multiple times in this film. She's really good. The movie in the beginning focuses on how like tense and weird their relationship is. It doesn't even really give a lot away in the beginning. You're kind of more confused and uncomfortable the whole time. But once, this isn't a spoiler, but once, Ainsley's character, known as Ella, once once she's working with her mother and she sees her mother is, I believe, having a seizure or a stroke of some kind, and she
That's what
passes
stroke
out
is,
and gets, yeah, that sends her mother into a coma. It kind of sends her spiraling down this really dark path. Ainsley's character Ella, she's the type of character who she really has an interest in stop motion animation. She wants to make her own stuff because she feels like she's only helping her mother out with her own projects. To the point where even in the beginning, like her mom even asks, like, "Do you have any ideas? Share them with me." And she can't even get a word out. So it just shows that she has this passion, but she's very insecure. Could be through the years of working with her mother, because there's a lot of hints of abuse that happened in the past, which we will get into, that kind of stops her from really wanting to reach her goals until, the plot of this movie takes off and she wants to start making her own stop motion animation film. But yeah, with her Descendants of Madness, she's really, really good in this film. And I will say also, the movie it looks amazing. Like the shots, just the opening shot alone with her like standing in the club and the lights changing, flashing super fast, and it goes from her frowning to her smiling. Like, I thought shots like that were really good in this film. It looks awesome. On top of the stop motion animation, I thought was also really good. It looked super, super fluent and smooth.
Mhm.
And I'm not too much. I don't know too much about the stop motion animation process. If anything, this movie taught me way more than I was expecting, and it actually gave me a bigger appreciation for these artists, because it is not easy work. It takes a lot of time, a lot of patience. It is something I don't think I could even attempt myself personally. But I thought it looked really, really good. And on top of Ainsley in this movie that plays Ella, there's also her neighbor who doesn't have a name. She goes by, in the IMDb credits, she's only credited as Little Girl, played by Kaylin Springall, who was super obnoxious when she first enters the screen, and I really didn't like her. And then but then, like, more starts to get revealed about this character, and it starts to really, it starts to make sense at a certain point, but it also gets very, very weird, their relationship that, her and this little girl have. And, I'll get into it because we're going to do more spoilers in the end. I'm trying to just be as vague as I possibly can right now for people that haven't seen it.
Right.
But, I thought the little girl, she was also really good in here too. I mean, it's mainly Ella and little girl in this movie. They're the face of it, and there's a lot going on with them. And another pro I'll say is that the imagery in this movie genuinely disturbing at times. Particularly homeboy behind me right here. He got under my skin when I saw him on screen. I'm like, the lights are off. I'm just like crouched up under the covers. Not gonna lie, I took a little something something when I watched it before this, so it really, it really made me mad uncomfortable. I ain't gonna lie. That was some creepy stuff. Anything with a puppet or a doll, I'm just like, hell no, keep it away from me. Like, I'm good on all that. But yeah, it was just like the imagery and just the direction, like, it got me genuinely uncomfortable. Robert Morgan knows how to build up tension and like subtle anxiety with a lot of these scenes throughout. At least in the first half. There's a lot of problems I have with the second half as the film progresses. I'm sure you feel the same way too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but yeah, honestly, all those things I absolutely love. Just how visually it looks, and the tension and the atmosphere of this movie, I think, is really well done. But for me personally, I think that kind of ends for the pros with me until we get to some spoilers. There's a lot more things I like, but I can't really get too much into it right now.
Mhm.
Do you have any pros yourself?
I think you basically covered it. I think the performances are very good. I think visually it is a very stunning is a weird way to put it, but it is a very uh stunning visually. There just the cinematography is very nice. Um
The lighting and everything's awesome.
yeah, the use of the stop motion mixed with live action um I think is very cool.
Yeah,
But yeah, as you mentioned, it is very different than what I was expecting. I had seen a trailer for this a while ago. I had only seen it once, but it was enough to pique my interest.
yeah.
Um,
The trailer definitely got me really excited for this.
yeah, I don't remember much of the trailer, but from what I do remember, what it seemed like was this woman making a stop motion film and this little girl saying some creepy shit. And then what I
What
thought
horror movies do.
Yeah. What I thought was gonna happen was that her stop motion was going to come to life, and this creature was going to be the antagonist throughout the film, and it was gonna be
Yeah,
this supernatural horror. That's what I was expecting going
that's
into
kind of
this.
what the trailer pitches you, and it
That's
kind of does that, but not in the way you're thinking.
yeah.
This movie's very is a lot more art house than the trailer gives off. It is a lot more metaphorical in that aspect, and at times it works, and a lot of the times it really doesn't.
Yeah. Um, but going into cons, I think my main one um is while she gives off a good performance, Ella herself isn't really a likable character. We don't know enough about her to really care.
Yeah, I don't think any of the characters are that likable. If I'm going to be honest, maybe the boyfriend.
Tom,
Uh,
yeah, we don't see him enough to really like him, but the scenes that he is in, he seems like a genuinely like he cares about her.
yeah, like he's not the douchebag boyfriend. He's someone that sees like this girl lost her mother. She's kind of losing it.
Yeah,
She's going way too hard in this new project, and she needs to take a break. She needs to come back with me. She needs to just chill. She needs to sleep. That's all he wants for her. He's like, just sleep,
yeah,
please.
he's trying to help. Another thing I didn't really care for is there's kind of a lack of explanation on things. Like, what does Tom do? Like, we know he deals with
I
music,
don't
but
know.
we have this
There's
whole it
there's something in the spoiler section I'll get to with that. But as
okay.
far as I know, he works in the stop motion office with his sister.
Cause he had, well, cause they have this whole argument where he's like, "You'll do my music videos," and he talks about doing music, and then she's like, "Tom, you don't make music. You put on a suit and you go to work." So, what is he a
Yeah,
musician himself? Is he a producer? Like,
I
what
think a
is?
musician is just like a passion project. It's like a side thing. It's not. It's like she sees like he's only doing it as a hobby,
Oh,
whereas he just mainly goes to the office and I think works with his sister.
got it. Okay,
That's what I got.
okay, yeah, because they never explicitly like say anything
Yeah.
about it.
The movie holds a lot back, which at times I think it's clever. How they like when they do explain it, I think it's really well done. And then there's a lot of stuff that's left up in the air where you're like, so what did that mean?
Now, let me ask you, um, because here's another thing. Like when Tom introduces her to the apartment, he's like, we gutted it out, blah blah blah. And he's like, so like nobody's here, or he says something along the lines of nobody's here, like the apartment itself is just empty.
Yeah,
Um, so when and this is going to be a spoiler. Um,
slight spoiler before the big ones at the end. The big one is just the ending, really, honestly.
yeah, when we're introduced to the little girl, off the bat, I knew she didn't exist.
Yeah,
Because
no, I thought she was something else though.
Tom says that nobody's in the building. So what is she doing here?
Yeah,
Um, but who is she? Like they don't really
you
my
didn't catch on who she was.
my assumption was she was Ella as a little girl. That
Yeah.
was
Oh, um, yeah. I mean, basically, that's what it is.
okay.
You know what? Fuck it. we're gonna go into spoilers right now because there's a lot of things in this movie we really got to talk about. So spoiler warning if you really don't want to know too much. It's not a big thing. This is a reveal that happens at the halfway point of the movie. The big spoilers are at the last 20 minutes. But if you want to know anything else, click away now. Or if you don't care, stay and enjoy the show. So yeah, that little girl is I don't believe is just Ella's as a little girl. I believe it is the darkness that's been like resting in Ella this whole time. Now that her mother is kind of out the picture,
Okay.
because her mother says there's a scene towards the end of the movie that she has this conversation in her head with her mother at the hospital. How her mother says she's nothing but a puppet, you know, that she's just a toy that is going to be played with and used, and that when people are done with her, she'll be put away in a box.
Right.
Um, I believe the little girl is the darkness that sat within Ella
Mhm.
that is now slowly seeping out and kind of subconsciously pushing her to do these awful, awful things in order to make the best stop motion film out there. And it's kind of like, you know, how Ella just needs, she is a puppet. She just needs, she has no control of her own. She needs someone to guide her. So she goes into her darkness to do that. She feels like this is the way, she feels like this is the way. At least that's what I got from the film personally. That's what it seemed like, because there's a lot of like references to Ella not having control
Yeah.
of her own. I got that they were the same person when um Ella leaves the party. She sees the little girl outside in the forest with the tape recorder. She records a line, and then when she plays it back, it's Ella's voice. So that's when I got, oh, they're the same person. This is
Mhm.
her. Whether that's actually her from her childhood or this is just a manifestation that she just came up with some random little girl, that's still vague. But that's what I got from it.
Okay. Yeah. No, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. I assumed it was some personification of Ella in some way.
Yeah.
Um,
What was
they
it?
just
Oh,
kind of it's very much left for you to figure out. I wasn't expecting him to like spoon feed the answer, but
which I appreciate. I don't like it when a movie spoon feeds too much.
yeah, but it like they kind of like don't fucking do anything to
Yeah.
give you like a hint or anything. I think the tape
Especially
recorder
by
is
the
like the
end.
only hint.
Yeah, especially by the end. Which, you know, it moves on to my cons, which I'll start with a small one. This movie is slow. Like the pacing,
Yes.
oh my god, dude. This is an hour and a half movie and it felt like 2.5. I'm not gonna lie.
I was when
I kept
I
looking at the time.
yeah, when
Like,
I look, I was like, "Oh, an hour and a half, this is gonna fly by." And I kept tapping. I watched it on my phone. I kept tapping my
same.
screen to see how much time was left.
Yeah, I was like, we're only 40 minutes in. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, this pacing is off. Like, they needed another editor to speed things up. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe they intentionally did that because the plot, it goes to another con here. The plot, there's not much to discuss with the plot. It's a very thin plot. There's not much going on in it. So I felt like they had to do a lot more visually to just stretch it out to make it a feature length film, and you can feel it being dragged out with these shots going on way too long with scenes that kind of feel like they don't need to be there. Like there's this scene right here with this puppet when it's talking on the screen, really visually cool. I don't know if it needed to be as long as it did, but you know, that's another problem with this movie. It just moves at a snail's pace, and I'm fine with a slow burn, but there are times where this movie is just kind of boring and it
I
needs to move on.
almost yeah, I almost turned it off and I almost was going to finish it this morning
Yeah.
because it was like 12:30, 1 o'clock, and I was like I can't do I was like I want to go to bed, like I can't do this. The
Yeah,
only
no.
thing that it was near the end of the movie. I think I had like 30 or 40 minutes left, and that's when it starts to like kind of kick up when Ella really starts to lose her shit. And then I was like, Okay, fine. I'll sit through the rest of it." But
Yeah.
I was gonna watch this movie in two like sessions because it was just too slow.
Yeah, I was debating on just straight up turning it off too, but I was like, I'm at the halfway point and it's about to get weird, so let's get to it.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, also fun fact, I looked up some of the trivia for this movie because I thought it was weird when the little girl suggested to use the meat to like create the skin. I only found out that's an actual method that some stop motion animation artists actually use, which is pretty wild.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean it's not a common practice, but it is like one particular artist does it. If I can find it, had it in my notes. Yeah, it was by stop motion animator Jan Svenmajer. Oh, I believe they're German or Swedish. I'm not sure. So sorry again. I'm butchering names all day today in this video. I love it. But yeah, they're saying it might sound extreme, but that is an actual method that is used in some stop motion films. I don't think they use a dead fox. I doubt that. But yeah, things start getting weird with Ella when she starts hanging out with this little girl. She's asking her to like make puppets out of meat, yeah, especially a dead fox that they find, which is pretty brutal to watch. I will say, actually, going back to another positive, there is a good amount of body horror here that really got under my skin, particularly when like she gets like the wound in her leg opened up. That was pretty gruesome.
It's that can be seen as a positive or a negative. Like yes, it is a
Depends on who you are.
yeah, it depends on who you are. It's a lot of body horror, which can make the film very tough to watch. Like there were some scenes where I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like
I don't want to see this anymore.
I know Emma hates body horror. So like Saw, she doesn't really like watching Saw films because that's just all it is.
Yeah.
And body horror makes her very uncomfortable. So I know she would not have liked this movie.
Yeah. For me, like Saw, when it comes to its body horror, it's just so like gratuitous that it's kind of hilarious at points.
Saw's
This is psychologically disturbing.
Saw is so extreme that you're like, okay, this is very like I don't want to say mellow, but it's very like small body horror to where like
sparingly.
Yeah, to where like it's very like close up stuff too. And the sound design in this film makes it just worse.
Yeah, like you hear a lot of like because they explain that like the stop motion puppets, they have like these metal skins underneath, like these tools, and you can hear them like creaking and stuff when you're moving. And you hear a lot of it throughout like the more intense scenes towards the end, or like sprinkled throughout the middle of the movie. Like it's subtly in the background at times, and that alone is just unnerving in itself. That really set up the atmosphere perfectly.
The squelching of like flesh whenever she's cutting into it, is very unnerving to listen to. I don't mind body horror. It can get very like uncomfortable to watch, but I think that's the point, is to make the audience feel uncomfortable. So I don't mind it, but I will say I was watching this and I was like, yeah, this would definitely be very uncomfortable for a lot of people to sit through.
Yeah. Which is what I guess you want when you want a horror movie. You want to feel uncomfortable because this movie's not really scary. It's just disturbing and weird and very, very anxiety inducing.
Yeah. It really, for me, I was like, as I was watching it, I was like, can we really classify this as horror, until the very end? Then I was like, okay, there it is. Then it becomes that psychological horror. But for the first, kind of like my opinion on Hereditary, like I felt Hereditary, was very much just kind of like a drama for most of it. And then at the very end is where I feel like it got its horror like kicked up. And that's where I felt like this film felt very much kind of like a drama, and then that psychological horror comes near the end, the last quarter of the film. But that is what I will say in terms of like the body horror. It can be a pro, it can be a con, depends on what you like.
Yeah, if you're very squeamish, do not watch this movie. Simple as that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and I will say, I know we talked about this a little earlier, but I just wish there was a little more about Ella's backstory that we got to really understand her descent into madness, because the only information we really get is that her mother is very overbearing. There's hints of abuse, not even from her mother. Her mother, I mean, her mother definitely is talking down on her and like and abusing her in her own way. But there's a conversation, I don't exactly remember, where I believe she says like her dad used to hit her mom. I don't know if you remember any of that. I
I don't
believe
think
there
I
was like
do.
a brief. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Um, no, you know what? I'm definitely thinking of something else. Yeah, I'm thinking of a completely different movie. My bad.
Okay. Because
Because I was like, oh,
I don't remember any
I was
mention of
watching
her
two things
dad.
that night. I was watching two things that night, so like I was mixing them up. But yeah, there's just hints of like something there, just psychologically messed up. And I will say the ending, and this is spoilers. While I thought the ending looked cool, I felt like it was kind of empty because you don't really fully understand what's happening. I feel like it's the type of ending where you're gonna have to probably rewatch it to really fully grasp it. But it's not really an ending. It's not a movie I really want to rewatch.
No.
So,
I think the ending, as you mentioned, her mother said you become a puppet, and then the puppets go back in the box when they're done. Um, this little girl used Ella as her puppet, and at the end, Ella gets into the box just like a puppet. She's done because in her mind, that's what's happening. She's going to
yeah,
into this box. Her use has been fulfilled. Um, in the real world, Ella is bleeding out. She's dead, and so she has completed kind of her story.
yeah,
My issue with that is you don't really care because we
yeah,
don't
because you
know
don't
enough
really
about Ella.
care. Yeah, you don't really care about her. There's now you can. We're gonna go into major spoilers now. You can interpret a few things as to what's causing her to do this. Like, um, since the little girl is technically Ella, like it leads to a bigger question: who is the Ashman to Ella? Was it someone? Was it her father? Was it someone that abused her when she was younger, when she was a child? Is it what kind of stirred up this darkness that was in Ella? And was it always in Ella to begin with? And maybe, I don't know, maybe by chance her mother was so overbearing because she saw that darkness in Ella. And that's why she was always on top of her and never wanted her to do her own ideas. Um, it's something that I was kind of thinking about a lot, but I think it just comes down to like who is the Ashman to her really. We don't get too many hints or ideas about it, but there are a few sprinkles in there.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Um, what did you think the egg meant?
So when Ella tries to do something different from what the little girl's suggesting, and then the Ashman kind of emerges from the set and puts the egg in her, I felt like in a way it was like impregnating her with more of this like violence, with more of this darkness.
Hmm.
Um, it could also tie into maybe a specific type of abuse that she endured when she was younger. But I think it was just her like birthing more evil inside of her to go further and to do a lot more messed up stuff, which she does by the end when when she gets further and further into making the movie, she ends up in the hospital at one point. Her boyfriend's there. She has that argument with the boyfriend, saying you're not a musician, you just put on a suit and go to work. And he's just like, I'm going to delete that movie. This is it. This is done. This is over. Like, it's not like he's breaking up with her. He's like, you need help, and this is not helping. And she's like, no, I want to, I want to I want to do it myself. And he's like, let's do it together, which was also kind of weird because then she ends up in the apartment by herself. So, like, she just went up by herself, I'm guessing.
I think she had escaped the hospital. Like she ran away, and then she got to the apartment before he
Okay.
could get there.
Maybe that was the part where I was kind of looking away for a second because I saw that her mom died. Like,
Yeah,
she just found out off the bat on top of the terrible stuff happening to her. Like,
yeah.
by the way, your mom's dead. She's like, crap. But yeah, she ends up at the apartment. She's trying to come up with more ideas for the dolls because the girl's saying like we need to make it more scary, more realistic. Uh, Tom, the boyfriend, and his sister, Polly, who Polly, very unlikable person, though she tries to like, she understands this girl's also losing it by the end too. Um, she, which is also kind of funny. I have to go back to it. Like Ella almost stops making the movie. Like she wants to stop making the movie at a certain point, but then when she sees Polly stole her idea, and Ella has a breakdown in the studio, it kind of pushes Ella to like, no, I got to finish it. Which at that point, I also, as an artist, I get it. I don't blame her for wanting to finish it. It's like you want to finish that first before anything else gets out.
Yeah.
But Ella's having a breakdown. She's opening up the wound again inside her leg, tearing out some flesh. It's really disgusting. Tom and Polly find her. They try dragging her out the apartment, and then a fight ensues in the hallway. She ends up brutally murdering Polly with the tripod through her neck. She holds Tom's breath by holding his nose, which is a callback to the beginning of the movie when she pinched his nose to wake him up, and it was all cute and all that back then. Now it's not so cute anymore because he's dead. And she brings their bodies back to the apartment and starts slicing them open. It is so disgusting, especially when you see the final product of like their skin being used to make these like life-size dolls. It's extremely disturbing. And then we get to the very art house metaphorical ending where the Ashman starts going after the real Ella to the point where the little girl's like, that's not supposed to happen. And when the little girl is not about it, it's bad because she's been pushing for all this craziness already. And yeah, it's a weird one. Ella hides in the closet. The Ashman finds her, starts messing with her face, and her face ends up turning into wax, and the Ashman is pushing, tearing it down more and more. It's very much looks like the poster behind Jerry right now. Very weird. Then we see Ella go into the red house that she built on the set, which reminded me very much of like Twin Peaks, David Lynch's Twin Peaks, just like that room alone. I know you haven't seen it, but I'll show you an image and you'll be like, it's almost shot for shot the same. They see the film. The little girl says, I love it. Ella goes into her little box. She's the toy that's done being played with. She has no more purpose. She fulfilled it. And the movie ends there. Yeah, that ending scene is brutal. Just watching that happen, it was really hard to watch, honestly.
It was very weird. The whole like clay, like the mortician's clay, like on her face, like I was like, I don't really understand what's happening here.
It's like I said, it was all metaphorical art house mumble jumbo. I think it was more like showing her furthermore how much of a puppet she actually is. Like she's nothing but a wax puppet, I guess. Just being used and control, which kind of makes me further believe like the Ashman was like a father or someone that was like a father figure in her past, in her past and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like how if they abused her, they used her. She was nothing more. Which it's sad when you really think about it. It is a very sad situation, and you could feel bad for Ella in that sense, but at the end of the day, like it's a little too late. She's done all these terrible things. It's kind of hard to feel bad for her.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's just kind of the whole film.
Yeah. What would you give this movie?
I don't. It's because it's not a bad film.
Yeah, this is far from a bad movie. It's a disappointing one, I guess.
It's disappointing, but it's not a bad film. I would give it maybe like a 6 out of 10.
I was thinking the exact same thing, 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely worth watching if you're just curious. It will be premiering on Shudder May 31st, I believe, just the end of May.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be, if you're curious, check it out. But I'll just say this, the trailer is not the movie you're going to get.
Yeah. I definitely recommend it as a watch. I It's just like you mentioned, it's nothing I would sit through again.
Yeah, some people will love it, some people will hate it. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Robert Morgan, I will say I am curious to see what else he does. I know he has a new stop motion animation film coming out called the Red Laugh, I believe it was called. So let's check that. Yeah, the Red Laugh.
Is that about stop motion or is that fully stop motion?
I'm not too sure yet. There's not too many details, but I know it is a horror slash war film. So curious to see what that ends up being, to be honest. But we'll see. But yeah, he is definitely someone I want to keep an eye out for. I may not have been the biggest fan of this one, but I definitely want to see what else he does. I think he's got a visually. I think he's got a good eye, and he has good ideas. This film is a great concept, but I just felt like there needed to be a little more fleshed out. That could have really elevated this movie a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, stuff to flesh out, to give Ella just more life, I guess. Or to give us a better understanding of Ella and make us actually care about her. And stuff to kind of just fix the pacing of the film, because it is very slow.
Get another editor. I'm sorry, just get one. This movie, it would have been fine at 40-50 minutes. I would have enjoyed it. I wouldn't have cared. But yeah, way too slow. Way too slow. I don't know what was going on with that. But yeah, that's gonna do it on my thoughts on this movie. I think it's definitely, for some of you, it would be worth a watch. It's not one I can really highly recommend, but it is worth checking out, especially if you're into body horror and stop motion animation. If you're really into that, I think this is worth watching.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 6 out of 10 for me, 6 out of 10 for Jerry. That's gonna do it for this review over here. If let us know down below in the comments what you think of this episode. If if you like this movie, if you didn't like this movie, tell us why either way. If there's anything else you would like us to review that is coming out, some of the smaller films, Jerry and I want to see a lot more of these smaller films coming out. We recently did a video on the big ones that are going to be dropping in theaters, but we're always looking for these hidden gems. So, let us know down below in the comments, like and subscribe. Once again, I am Brandon.
I'm Jerry.
Stay spooky.